Well, good morning. Here it is. It's Tuesday morning, and of course that means today is April the 15th. We're halfway through this month of April already, and I hope you had a great Monday. I hope that you were able to get this week started and get off on the right foot, hopefully. And of course, this being Holy Week. It's a great time of year. A lot of things that we celebrate, culminating with Easter this week. But anyway, hope you had a great Monday, great start to the week, and now God has, blessed us with the breath to breathe here on this Tuesday morning. And I certainly hope and pray that this morning finds you feeling well. Hope it finds you, well rested, and hopefully, ready to. Venture out here in a little while and tackle the opportunities that God has richly blessed us with here on this Tuesday morning. This morning, I'd like to share a devotional with you entitled, Jesus is Arrested. In Luke chapter 22, verse 52, it says this: Then Jesus spoke to the leading priests, the captains of the temple guard, and the elders who had come for him. Am I some dangerous revolutionary, he asked, that you come with swords and clubs to arrest me? The scene in Gethsemane, when Jesus was arrested, is chaotic and confusing, in the gospel account. Imagine how much more chaotic and confusing it was, in person. Judas Iscariot, who knew Gethsemane, well because of the time he spent with Jesus. He led the arresting party. With him was an odd mix of characters, Roman soldiers, temple guards, Jewish officials, and assorted servants. Strange bedfellows, to say the least. Now, John chapter 18, verse 4, it says this: Jesus fully realized all that was going to happen to him, so he stepped forward to meet them. It must have been just a little bit unsettling, for Judas and, his cohorts, to plan Jesus's, surprise arrest, only to find that Jesus was expecting them. That may explain why it says in verse 6, they all drew back and fell to the ground, when he identified himself. By taking control of, the situation, Jesus, he aimed to avoid a violent confrontation. But Peter, he didn't get the memo. He drew his sword and he took a wild swing. He missed the armed soldiers and guards, but he managed to cut off the ear of Malchus, the high priest's slave. Now Jesus, he healed this injured man, and then he helped Peter recognize who was really pulling the strings here. In Matthew chapter 26, verses 53 and 54, Jesus said, "Don't you realize that I could ask my Father for thousands of angels to protect us, and he would send them instantly? But if I did, how would the scriptures be fulfilled that describe what must happen, now?" Now, there's our takeaway from this story. Despite the chaotic nature, of this scene, and despite the unpredictability of, human nature, there was never a moment, when the Lord wasn't in control. I mean, when did Judas and his cronies show up? Well, it was after Jesus had finished praying. They didn't catch him by surprise. They didn't interrupt his conversation with, his Father. They made their entrance when they were supposed to. They didn't disrupt the plan that was unfolding. They were a part of it. You see, they played the roles that God intended them to play. The disciples, they didn't see it that way. Not in that moment at least. And in Matthew chapter 26, verse 56, Matthew wrote, "At that point, all the disciples deserted him and fled." I mean, Matthew, he should know. I mean, he was one of them. Jesus was abandoned in the garden by all his closest friends, except, of course, for the one who betrayed him. Yet, despite the optics of the situation, You see, Jesus was still in control. And that's important for us to remember, today, in the day that we live in. Because if we face a situation, that seems to be beyond the Lord's control, we should look at it from a different perspective. And we should know that the Lord is in control and He will take care of us no matter what. I'm going to leave you with this question to reflect on today. What's an area of your life that you need to remind yourself is under the Lord's complete control, even though it may not appear that way? Hope you'll reflect on that today and think about it. And anyway, I hope you have a wonderful day. Remember, Angie and I, we love you guys and we're praying for you. And Lord willing, I'll see you tomorrow morning. God bless you.